Tonight, two powerhouse teams step onto the stage, each with a legacy of excellence and a reputation for razor-sharp wit. OGANDE Girls vs St. Monicah Girls KITALE. The stage is set, the arguments are ready, and the spotlight is on these two remarkable teams. OGANDE's journey to this stage has been nothing short of exceptional. Their season began with a commanding performance in the preliminaries, where their clarity, structure, and flawless teamwork earned them a top ranking in their pool. From the very start, it was evident that OGANDE wasn't here to participate. They were here to dominate. As the knockout rounds unfolded, they showed exactly why they are one of the most respected and feared teams in the circuit. Every argument dismantled with precision, every rebuttal delivered with confidence, every point anchored in solid reasoning. They moved with intent, proving that mastery is not an accident but a result of relentless preparation. Their quarterfinal display was a masterclass in strategy, a performance that sent a message across the competition. OGANDE had arrived. By the semi-finals, they had evolved from contenders to a team on a mission. Their poise, discipline, and unity were unmistakable. At every stage, they demonstrated that their values are not mere ideals, they are powerful weapons. For years, OGANDE Girls has shaped confident, articulate young women who stand tall in the face of national issues with courage, clarity, and conviction. Their debate room is more than a classroom. It is a crucible, a training ground where ideas are sharpened, voices are strengthened, arguments are tested, and leaders are forged. Every round they engage in is an investment in the future women who will speak, lead, and influence the nation. This season, their strength, resilience, and consistency have secured their place not only in the finals but also among the elite teams qualifying for nationals. Their performance has been a testament to what can be achieved when talent meets discipline and when passion is guided by purpose. Tonight, OGANDE Girls walk in not just as debaters but as a force, a representation of excellence, discipline, and relentless determination. They stand here carrying the pride of their school, the expectations of their supporters, and the unwavering belief that they belong on this stage. And as the lights rise and the debate begins, one thing is clear: OGANDE is not here to compete. They are here to make history. St. Monicah Girls High School. From the vibrant city of KITALE rises a team defined by resilience, creativity, and unmatched strategic depth. St. Monicah Girls High School. St. Monicah's road to the finals has been nothing short of inspiring. Their season opened with dominant performances in the preliminary rounds, where their structured arguments, sharp analysis, and bold delivery captured the attention of judges and competitors alike. From the beginning, they showed that they were not just participants, they were contenders. In the knockout stage, St. Monicah faced some of the toughest opponents in the region, yet they stood unshaken. They adapted under pressure with remarkable composure, recalibrating strategies mid-debate and responding to complex arguments with clarity and confidence. Each victory was earned, each step forward a display of grit and brilliance. Every debate they have taken on this season reflects a team anchored in discipline, guided by intentional coaching, and fueled by a collective drive to excel. They are a team that thrives on deliberate preparation, where research runs deep, practice is purposeful, and every speaker understands the weight of their role. Their journey is one defined by turning challenges into stepping stones and transforming every stage into a classroom for growth. Led by strong leadership and a spirit of unity, St. Monicah has risen to become one of the most compelling and respected voices in the region's debate circuit. Their confidence is not loud, it is earned. Their excellence is not by chance, it is built. And their impact is felt in every room they walk into. Their consistency and determination have earned them not only a deserved place in the finals, but also a powerful qualification for nationals, cementing their place among Kenya's most promising debate teams. Tonight, St. Monicah Girls KITALE step forward ready to compete, ready to challenge, and ready to shine, carrying with them the pride of their school, the strength of their preparation, and the fire of a team poised for greatness. And now, may the best team stand tall.
There's that old saying that goes, what a man can do, a woman can do better.
We teach girls to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller,
Today, we say no more.
Systemic barriers are actually slamming the door on young women entrepreneurs, which locks out their potential, innovation, and progress.
We stand firm to say financial institutions are not perpetuating, but dismantling systemic barriers that have limited access to credit for young women entrepreneurs.
In Kenya, only 1% of land is registered under women's name.
Digitalization has removed geographical and bureaucratic barriers. There's that old saying that goes, what a man can do, a woman can do better. But apparently when it comes to entrepreneurship and access to finance, we seem to draw the line in between there. And that is a bone of contention for today's motion of dissection, which reads, financial institutions continue to uphold systemic barriers that make it harder for young women entrepreneurs to access credit, stalling their economic empowerment. Joining us today for this debate, we have OGANDE girls versus St. Monica's KITALE, and we cannot wait to see who takes the day. All the best to both teams. Team proposition, first speaker, you do have 3 minutes.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, imagine if banks were people and they'd be that one old grumpy uncle who keeps on asking, where's your land title? Even when you just want to start a simple bakery and not build a whole stadium. This is Juma Teklin Benazir from the Uganda Girls High School, here to firmly propose the motion which clearly states, financial institutions continue to uphold systemic barriers that make it harder for young women entrepreneurs to access credit, stalling their economic empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, when you empower a woman, you empower a whole nation. But we find that today, systemic barriers are actually slamming the door on young women entrepreneurs, which locks out their potential, innovation, and progress. My definition of terms, financial institutions, which refer to banks, microfinance organizations, credit unions, and other bodies that provide loans and financial services. 2. Systemic barriers, which are ingrained institutional biases and policies that disproportionately disadvantage certain groups. In this case, it's young women entrepreneurs. And finally, the young women entrepreneurs are females under the age of 35 who own or run a particular business. Now, my first argument of the day is credit scoring system and discrimination or rather documentation bias. Now, we find that traditional credit algorithms do not consider young women's unique financial behaviors, which in this case are things like chamas. We find that young women who are actually running, or rather young women who are running informal businesses or home-based industries, still or rather often lack the banking history or formal registration required to have access to credit. Now, how do you expect a 20-year-old in a university who has a brilliant idea to have all these things that they're demanding for? Now, according to the World Bank, only 37% of women globally have access to formal financial credit. Now, where does the 63% go? This is a question for you, team opposition. Now, it also states that, according to FSD Kenya, over 60% of women-owned businesses operate informally, and not because of the cost, not really, but due to bureaucracy and lack of support in formalization. As Ondari Madai once said, the higher you go, the lesser women you see. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me dismantle this ladder today. Thank you.
Honorable judges, respected audience, today we rise not to ignore the struggles women have faced, but to affirm on the tide of change sweeping across Kenya's financial landscape. We stand firm to say financial institutions are not perpetuating, but dismantling systemic barriers that have limited access to credit for young women entrepreneurs. Today's institutions are creating a bridge, not a barrier to economic empowerment for young women. It's high time we stop echoing outdated narratives and start recognizing progress. I, Marian Mogotu, representing St. Monica's Girls Senior School, ready to oppose this motion that states financial institutions continue to uphold systemic barriers that make it harder for young women entrepreneurs to access credit, stalling their economic empowerment. Allow me to explain my first key term, which is financial institutions. These include banks, microfinance institutions, SACCOs, credit unions, and fintech lenders, etc. They play a central role in allocating credit, offering loans, and managing savings and investments. Allow me to explain. Continue to uphold. This implies persistence or maintenance on certain practices or systems. The motion suggests that these barriers are not new and haven't been dismantled either. They are still active despite progress elsewhere. Systemic barriers. Deep rooted institutionalized obstacles baked into how systems operate. That is systemic barriers. Also, allow me to explain stalling the economic empowerment. Stalling means slowing down or preventing progress, while economic empowerment means um, um, owning and growing businesses or becoming financially independent. Now, allow me to explain my first point and let us talk about the existence of gender responsive credit policies. Many institutions have adopted gender policies which has helped them to address past biases. And a research conducted by the NCBA Bank partners with the She Traders Kenya, which provided financial literacy for the young women entrepreneurs. Also, the Equity Bank launched the Fanikisha loan program for women entrepreneurs with relaxed security demands. Now, systemic barriers are not just being acknowledged, they are being fixed through structured policies, and this is what we need. Now, allow me to ask you this. Can a system with its own policies geared towards inclusion and not exclusion be called biased? Thank you. Let us all focus on preventing rather than in any aftermath repent. Thank you.
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie once said, "We teach girls to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller. Today, we say no more." I'm Beatrice Zenya from the Ogani Girls, here to strongly propose the motion that states financial institutions continue to uphold systemic barriers that make it harder for young women entrepreneurs to access credit, stalling their economic empowerment. No, the tendency of team opposition's mendacity is rising higher than the level of mercury to make than the level of mercury in a thermometer. Now let me clear this air. Well, the team opposition, in your definition of terms, you've already supported us. Thank you. Well, you mentioned that the systemic barriers still exist. Yes, they do exist, and that's why young women entrepreneurs are crumbling. They're lowering their progress in economic. Now, my argument is based on outdated collateral requirements. Will banks still require immovable assets like land or buildings as loan securities? And in Kenya, only 1% of land is registered under women's name, according to FAO 2023. Then how then can young women entrepreneurs qualify for these loans? This is like asking young women entrepreneurs to swim across Lake Victoria before handing them a life jacket. In contrast, men inherit property with ease. Let's take an example in sub-Saharan Africa, where women own less than 20% of land, according to Scribd. Now, it is unrealistic to still expect them to acquire these loans. Let's take an example, a practical example. A 24-year-old female university leaver who doesn't even have any capital. Now, how do you expect this this lady to start business without outdated collateral requirements? Despite having a world-winning business idea, then they don't have outdated collateral requirements, then the winning business idea is as useless as a bottle of beer in a saint's party. Now, outdated collateral requirements are diminishing, lowering, and crumbling, and crushing the young women entrepreneurs' progress in business. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I offer a solution. What solution? The Financial institutions can use the Lion's Den, which is a table of merchants. They can use this format as a solution to the young women entrepreneurs. Well, they can offer the Lion's Den funds upcoming businesses so that they can progress and get shares as part of their payment. Let's not sleep on our ears. Let's not face reality with our backs. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I am proud to propose empowering a woman is not just a dream, it is a systematic program that has been embraced in the current system. I, Favor Rodins here from St. Monica's Girls Senior School, do oppose the motion that says financial institutions continue to uphold systematic barriers, making it harder for young women entrepreneurs to access credits, stalling the economic empowerment. Team proposition, speaker number one, you have talked about how do we expect a woman of about 20 years to access credits. Let me tell you, Barasha Mama programs from the Old Mutual are aiming straight to empower young women at a younger age. Yes, they are. Allow me to ask you this question. If a woman can access credits just in less than 3 minutes from the comfort of their homes, what are the systematic hurdles that we're still talking about? And this helped me to narrow down to my first point. Digitalization has removed geographical and bureaucratic barriers. Mobile banking apps and fintech programs like Mshwari, M-Pesa, Tala have given millions of women around Kenya, even in rural areas, opportunity to access an instant and a free loan. Yes, they have. According to the FSD Kenya 2022, show that women make up about 51% of microfinance loans borrowers. And I can't support this because governments, banks, institutions, and programs have leveled up by playing in this field. How? The governments have funded millions of shillings into women's financial inclusions, like the Uwezo funds, women enterprise funds, and the Ajira funds. These have helped women to access credit from the comforts of their homes. Yes, they have. And by 2023, Women Enterprise found that lends over 26 billion to 1.2 billion borrowers of women. As I conclude, allow me to ask you this question. Why are we, programs like WEF have given out billions of money to women? Why are we still claiming that women are shut out from borrowing credits from financial institutions?
Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Wangari Maathai once said that a woman without title deeds is invisible in the eyes of the bank. And honorable opposers wants us to believe that the playing level is that the playing field is level. But well, let me introduce you to the reality, to the blunt version, but to the reality of the millions of women in our country, Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, my first speaker, before I go to their points, let me rebut your first speaker. She talked about collateral free loans. Yes, I agree. They are collateral free loans. These digital platforms, you say they have solved everything. But loans, you have mentioned Tala. You mentioned branches that offer high interest loans to women. But these high interest loans to women have short term loans. These short term loans trap women into debts. So calling this empowerment is totally impractical and unhuman. Your second speaker talked about women having focused loans. These focused loans including the AGRA. Yes, we agree. We do not oppose that one. But these loans are tiny and bureaucratic. Ladies and gentlemen, they are tiny and bureaucratic, and they are often offered in condensation. So, expecting a young woman to use these particular loans from mobile apps to be able to develop their businesses is impractical, because this is simply like giving someone a spoon, expecting this person to dig a well using this particular spoon. So my first speaker and second speaker talked about credit history and outdated collateral requirement. So ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, team oppositions, you are young women in Kenya. Yes, you are innovative and agile, but innovation is not the same as sustainability.
So telling us that if you are a woman, you innovate something, you will be able to sustain it just simply because Mshwari or Equity financial institutions is funding you with practical money that can never even be enough for your business. I totally disagree, and I will not stand in for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have these 24-year graduates from the Kenyatta University. What does this young woman have in her hands? One, a degree. Second, dreams. And maybe a ringing light for her TikTok businesses. So, expecting this woman to develop her businesses from funds from the M-Shwari is impractical. So, Team Opposer, I would like to appreciate you because I think your sense of humor is top notch. I thought you are young women. How can you proudly sit in front of ladies and gentlemen, proudly opposing this woman while you are women? And to the ladies and gentlemen, if dreams were currency, then in our country, Kenya, young women would now be owning half the economy. And as Michelle Obama once said, a country that does not sterilize the innovation of its women, when these women also turn blind to the systemic barriers held against them, this country cannot develop. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us vote for reality and not just fantasy. Thank you.
Lovely. Lovely, they say. Those are the words of people who went ahead of me. When the third speaker is talking about, she's wondering why we are opposing the motion. We are not opposing because you're not seeing the broad light of how the financial institutions are. We are opposing because you are overlooking over things that are supposed to be. There are other factors like the lack of collateral and property. That is another factor. We have financial exclusion and literacy. That is another factor that is stalling the women empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this question. When did ambition become gendered? Then, why is it when a young woman enters a bank, the world treats them like they're entering a beauty parlor? This motion claims the financial institution are the villains behind all these things. But the reality states and the reality remains that these financial institutions are the reformed characters in the redemption arc. If we are overseeing all these things, meaning that we are blinded by the things that are really happening in this world, ladies and gentlemen, let's take an example. From Faulu to NCBA, Old Mutual to KDIC, institutions are shifting. The policies are revolving. We have the opportunities for young women are growing. This motion is not just outdated, but it is unfair for those processes and those progress that these things have placed for us. Ladies and gentlemen, one of you came and told us that the women are being offered smaller loans. Now, let's us be practical to everything. When you offer a bigger loan to these young women, are they going to be able to pay it? Offer something that is credible to that person and they are able to pay it both. Now, another thing, the rise of women's specific financial product. The many institutions have designed product filling especially for women, which inherently reduce systemic barriers. Now let's take an example. The Old Mutual, Beresha Mama, offer insurance the financial solution bundled and health businesses for these women. Do you want to overlook that? Now, another example we have, the Kenya Women Microfinance Bank, the KWFT, staffs over 800,000 women, offering unsecured group loans, which is flexible repayment schedules. Do you want to say that is not enough? Is that not a progress that these things are making? Let's take another example. The Faulu Kenya runs the Faulu Mwanamke loan designed with low collateral demand flexible terms. That is according to the Kenya Bankers Association. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we are opposing this motion that state financial institution continues to uphold systemic barriers which make it harder for young and women entrepreneurs
to access credit, selling their economic empowerment. Let us not forget other factors. Let us not make the financial institution be the main villain. Let's make things realistic and let's go in a broader daylight. And with that, have a nice day.
This debate began like a discussion on financial institutions, systemic barriers, and how they affect young women, but it ended up with a team opposition giving us a compass with no direction, completely pointless and basically useless. Now, first of all, I'd like to say some of your statistics are very wrong because according to kwftbank.com, it clearly states that they don't offer non-collateral loans. They offer social collateral loans, meaning that no traditional collateral is required for most loans. Now, team opposition to qualms, queer facts, and baseless statistics, which I have not found giving, and we gave you proper statistics, and we showed you why systemic inequality in access to credit is not an accident. It is a design, and not unless we rebuild the systemic, or rather we rebuild this system, then young women in the society will continue to remain underfunded and underestimated. Now, you said about discrimination. If a man or a young man and a young woman still went to the bank to get loans, then they'd still be given the same amount of loans. This motion was about systemic barriers, not discrimination. As my third speaker said, don't vote for fantasy, vote for reality. I rest my case.
The proposition claimed that women are systemically blocked from credit. But our reality tells a different story. Financial institutions have evolved. The mobile credit apps, the gender-sensitive products, the regulatory changes, the government-blocked funds all have worked tirelessly to remove the systemic chains. But what remains are not systemic chains, but it is our blindness towards sin. What you guys are failing to understand is not that we are persuading you to say that financial institutions have these systemic barriers. Yes, they do. But they are working tirelessly day and night to try to remove it because they say life is a standard and the standard is what has been kept for life. And when these people are coming and raising onto power, they form the systemic barriers. And right now, as the generation are evolving, as the world is changing, as the finances for the women is also growing because chances for the ladies are there. Let us not be blinded by faults and any other thing. Let us go with the realities. Let us understand what we are made of and what we are. And with that, I rest my case.
I'd like to keep this as brief as possible. Let's start with what proposition argue. The summary of proposition case is to say that the processes involved in accessing the benefits of financial institutions are a problem for women, and allocation of resources become inherently an issue as well. The opposition case is to say that policies specific to women are present and hence they are continuing to break systematic barriers that have existed. Let's now run through how the debate went and feedback in regards to this. First, pick up team proposition. I think the setup was good in terms of the definitions that you provide to the debate. We have no qualms about that. I think then, once you impact the idea of how it's important to then dismantle this ladder, you should then finish it off and saying, now what are the outcomes that then result to women? Once you dismantle this ladder, we need to see that impact to that extent. First speaker in team opposition, I think the setup was good as well. But again, we still face a challenge. Once you talk about this idea of how gender-responsive credit policies have been put in place, and you mention a few of them, and you now try to draw the impact, this then becoming that inclusion for women then happens. Now we need to see how that affects these women on a day-to-day basis in terms of how they now better engage with these financial institutions. Are they now able to get sufficient loans? Are they able to get better credit and these types of things? That last bit was hanging from the first speakers. Second speaker team proposition, Beatrice. I enjoyed the argument on how outdated collateral requirements make it harder for women to access credit or to access loans in the first place. This argument was made even better by the comparative analysis on how it's difficult for women to get loans in comparison to men when you look at the requirements required to gain loans in the first place. This further proves the idea that systemic barriers set up by the system continuously even make it harder to prove whether women are better or not. Let's get to second opposition speaker. I think a lot more could be done in regards to now proving how the removal of these bureaucratic barriers continues to exist, because you cannot just list examples and not explain how at the end of the day these bureaucratic barriers continue to be removed, especially since the push from proposition is very strong to explain how women are disproportionately affected. Third speakers, as we just wrap off the summary of the debate. This pushes from the third speaker is to defend their claim of how women, even with the policies that opposition try and prove that are catered towards women, at best, even when women get to access them through things like Uwezo or Jira or the policies that are catered towards women, the Fanikisha ones that have been brought up, they're tiny and bureaucratic at best. We think at the end of the day, it still stands that the idea that this further entrenchment and isolation of women continues to exist rather than financial inclusions at the end of the day. Thank you very much for the interesting debate. Good luck to both teams. Thank you.
A round of applause, please, for our judge for his comments on the round that we've currently had. I will move straight to the results, and the judges have awarded Ogande girls with 63.38%. A round of applause, please, for Ogande Girls School. And the judges have awarded St. Monica Girls with 63.13%. A round of applause, please, for St. Monica, making Ogande Girls the winner of this round with 63.38%. A round of applause, please, for the winners of this round. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of yet another episode here at the Debate Circle. It has been a pleasure hosting it. My name is Jaina Ching, and remember to follow our social media handles at the Debate Circle on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And until next time, it's goodbye from us.